Mary Berry, the Great British Bake Off judge, has told Glamour magazine that children should be banned from bringing mobile phones to the dining table. She apparently enforces what she calls a strict Downing Street rule, with visiting children who are told to hand in their gadgets before dinner is served. Let's talk about this now with Grant Harold, who's an etiquette expert and former butler to Prince Charles and the royal household. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
I can't imagine Prince William and Prince Harry bringing their mobile phones to the table and Buckingham Palace. Who does this anyway?
Hopefully nobody. But again, we live in the 21st century and these gadgets are available to all sorts of ages, even down to what can I even say, 3-year-olds. I saw a child with one the other day, an iPad. I don't know. I think he probably knew how to use it better than his dad. But, this is the world we live in. But it's so sad when people do bring gadgets into dining rooms. But luckily, I can say in about 17 years, I don't really think I've seen it happen that often.
I mean, if we go to a pub these days, quite often the first thing people do when they sit down is put their phone on the table in front of them. And of course, you can be having the most in-depth conversation and suddenly the phone will buzz. And, a friend 200 miles away has just posted a picture of their beans on toast they're having for their tea. And the whole conversation halts. And it's just getting more and more ridiculous.
Absolutely. And, in the world that I'm in, where, you always say that putting a mobile phone on the table is extremely rude. I mean, it's almost as rude without going into what I mean, but like putting part of the male body on the table. It's treated as quite a serious offence in certain homes, and it's just not done.
But what about Mary Berry saying that she actually removes devices from children when they arrive? I mean, that's also crossing a line, isn't it? Actually saying, hand your phones over.
I think when she says it's a 10 Downing Street rule, I think what she's meaning is when you visit, for example, like 10 Downing Street, they'd probably take devices off you as a security precaution. So I think that's probably the reason they do that. I think her rule that she does, I can believe that some people would actually insist that children hand over the electronic gadgets because at the end of the day, they don't want them sitting down at a table. Actually, the other thing I thought, in a lot of houses, you would hope that the nannies whisk the children off for the high tea and then off to bed, so when the adults are having dinner, the phones or gadgets aren't even around.
Well, that happens in my house, Chris. I'm sure it happens in yours. Chris, it happens in yours as well, doesn't it? But Chris, I know that you've got two girls. I've got two girls, Grant, as well. So the two of us, between us, how hard it is sometimes to control small children around the dinner table.
Absolutely.
Chris, I want you to be honest here. Have you ever allowed your girls perhaps a tablet at the breakfast table just to keep things quiet?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because before you become a parent, you go, oh dear, and you go and visit friends and tut and see their kids and them offering their phones or tablets or whatever. But then when you've just got a kind of maelstrom of madness in the morning and it's all just going insane, you just sometimes find yourself having to do the same. You feel bad about it, but what's the alternative? Just complete carnage.
And Grant, I've never actually done that, but a friend once did come over, and I went upstairs to do something and came down, and she was feeding my children and her children. There were 5 children around the table, and there was silence, and I thought, what has she done? Then I realised there was just a carefully placed mobile phone, and they were all watching, I don't know, CBeebies. And for a moment, I thought, oh, this is the way forward. But I mean, for you, it's an etiquette. No, I'm sure Nanny never does that when she whisks the children away.
Well, thankfully, with nannies and things, they're quite strict. And back in the days of, if I can use Downton Abbey, thankfully we didn't even have any of these devices. The problems didn't come up. But absolutely, it is difficult. I have over the years had to also look after children, and I know it's difficult because it's trying to keep them entertained at a table, which isn't easy. And I always recommend to people, it's the old-fashioned things. Bring out the colouring book, the crayons. I know it's a more traditional approach, but at least that's a bit more, it's a bit better than just sitting in their own little world on an iPad or an iPhone.
I've just had a text in actually from Simon from Guildford who said, what planet are you on, Radio 5 Live? No one lets their kids have devices at the table. I think we've all seen evidence that some people do.
As I said, it happens, and I think parents would sometimes do it just in order to kind of keep the children quiet. And as I said earlier on, a lot of children probably wouldn't even be at the dining table, but in some homes, I realise that some families, quite rightly, all sit around the table and have a meal together, which I'm absolutely all for. But if you're doing that, don't give the children an electronic device. You all want to sit there and be able to communicate. So I'm quite strict, though. If children come to my home to have a dinner, as I say, as Mary Berry says, if I see a mobile phone or a gadget come out, I'll ask them to take it off the table, or they can play with it or use it later on.
Grant, thank you so much. Nice to talk to you this morning.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Chris, I don't know whether you tend to eat with your children around the dinner table, whether they're whisked off by nanny to the West Wing or not. I'm not sure I know any families that actually have that going on.
No, not many. I don't know, though. You know what? I mean, I sort of gave the impression that we sort of let the kids have a go with that. But I think in general, it's not a great idea, is it? I think sometimes when you're out and about in a restaurant or whatever, in a cafe, and you just don't realise before you're a parent, you know, the number of people who can turn around and just be sort of tut-tut-tutting. And as soon as you become a parent, you realise, actually, this is proper kind of man management we're talking about here. And I think sometimes there's an excuse, but in general, it's not a great pattern to get into, is it really? Particularly if you sort of think that sitting around as a family is meant to be about connecting and, you know, having conversations and finding out about what each other's been doing and all that kind of thing. If you sat down there with, you know, competing with Dora the Explorer, it's probably not necessarily the best. But who on earth can? It's an impossible competition, isn't it? It's 7:33. You're listening to 5 Live. It's Sunday Breakfast. Sam Walker and Chris Warburton with you this morning. And let's get the latest 5 Live news.
On digital, online, smartphone and tablet. This is BBC 5 Live.